Seeking the return of the Silmarils and vengeance against Melkor, renamed Morgoth, the Noldor elves left the Undying Lands to settle in the Beleriand region of Middle-earth so they might fight the War of the Great Jewels against the Dark Lord in his fortress of Angband, found beneath Thangorodrim, 3 volcanic mountains with the tallest peaks in Middle-earth. Originally landing on the shores of Lamoth, the Noldor elves settled in and established the realms of Hithlum, including the regions of Mithrim and Dorlomen, Nevrast including Vinyamar, Gondolin, Nargothrond, Ardgallen, Dorthonion with Ladros, the Pass of Aglon, the March of Maedhros, Maglor's Gap, Himlad, Himring, the fortress of Mount Rerir, Thargelion, as well as the wilds of West and East Beleriand. Yet the Noldor were not the only elves living in the area, as many descendants of the Teleri faction, who did not complete the journey to Valinor, settled this region long ago, including the Sindar elves of Menegroth in Doriath, along with Nan Elmoth, the havens of the Falas, including Eglarist and Brithombar, and Mithrim, while the Lyquendi, or Green Elves, who originally settled east of the Misty Mountains, eventually made their home in Ossiriand. During times of hardship in the later years of the First Age, the Isle of Valar in the Bay of Valar and mouths of Sirion, including Arvenian, became a refuge for all elves. Aside from the Eldar, dwarves and humans also populated this region, with the dwarves of the Firebeard and Broadbeam clans settling Nogrod and Belagost in the Blue Mountains, where they were on friendly terms with some of the Noldor and Sindar elves, at times even fighting by their side against Morgoth. Many humans of Beleriand also allied with the elves, as the Edain houses of men migrated into the region after escaping the growing influence of Morgoth in the east, near their original homeland of Hildorien. With permission from the elves, the House of Beor stayed in Estolad until settling Ladros, the House of Haleth lived in Thargelion before making their home in the forest of Brethil, and the House of Hador remained in Estolad before moving to Dorlomen. Nearing the end of the age, yet another wave of human migrants came into Beleriand, with the swarthy Easterlings from the houses of Ulfang and Bor settling just west of the Blue Mountains. Swearing their allegiance to the Noldor elves, only the House of Bor remained faithful, while the House of Ulfang joined Morgoth and betrayed the elves. Other notable locations in Beleriand included the rivers Gelion, Sirion, and Narog, as well as the towers Barad Nimros and Minas Tirith, both built by Finrod, Barad Ethel, the seat of Noldor High Kings, and Tower Imduinath, a dark forest to the south where Avari from the east sometimes wandered. Then there was Amon Rud, home to the dwarven exiles called Petty Dwarves, and Amon Ereb, where some of the Noldor took refuge for a time. After years of struggle and strife, Morgoth eventually conquered nearly all of Beleriand, with Ardgallen becoming Anfauglith, Dorthonion turned into Taur Nufuin, and Minas Tirith made Tol-in Gaurhoth. Desperate for help, the half-elven heroes Earendil and Elwing sailed west and begged the Valar for assistance, convincing them to join their allies in Beleriand to fight the War of Wrath, where they defeated the Dark Lord, executed his body, and banished his spirit from the world. Yet this victory once again came at a heavy cost, with the lands and seas of Arda changing form. Greatly disturbed by all the devastation they wrought, the Valar agreed to never again directly interfere with the peoples of Middle-earth. Thus began the Second Age, with the host of the Valar returning to the continent of Amma, now entirely detached from the east as Helcaraxe fell beneath the waves. In order to reward the Edain humans who fought with the Valar against Morgoth, they were granted enhanced abilities, longer lives, and given the island of Elena, raised in the ocean Belegaer, where they founded the kingdom of Numenor. With Beleriand and other regions falling into the sea, the peoples of Middle-earth recovered as best they could, while Darkland further south remained largely the same, as did Eastland, now called the Land of the Sun, featuring the Wall of the Sun mountain range. Taking a closer look at Middle-earth, 4 of the 7 dwarf clans continued to live in the Red Mountains, while the Longbeards thrived in the Misty Mountains, taking in refugees from the Firebeards and Broadbeams, escaping the ruins of Nogrod and Belegost in the Blue Mountains. Yet some dwarves remained and reformed their clans, joined by others who would eventually return, but they never again reached the heights of years past. As for the elves, those who survived the fall of Beleriand largely left behind their factionalism and lived together in the kingdom of Lindon, west of the Blue Mountains, under High King Gil-galad, a descendant of Finwë. Lindon included the harbors of Forlond, Harlond, and the Grey Havens, ruled by Lord Círdan, who built ships capable of transporting elves west of the Undying Lands. Yet while many left Middle-earth, some did not, with the more adventurous among them leaving Lindon to journey east, where Celebrimbor, the grandson of Feanor, founded Eregion as a city of smiths, located near Khazad-dûm in the Misty Mountains, home to the great craftsmen and miners of the Longbeard clan, so they might trade materials and learn from each other. After the fall of Eregion in a war against the second Dark Lord Sauron, Lord Elrond, the son of Eärendil, founded Rivendell in the north as a refuge for those fleeing the conflict. Other adventurous elves, like the Sindar noble Orifer, met the more primitive Sylvan elves of the Greenwood Forest, descendants of the Teleri, who, like the Green Elves, abandoned the great journey to settle east of the Misty Mountains. Ruling from Amon Lank, Orifer became king of the Woodland Realm, while another Sindar noble Amdir met Sylvan elves in a forest further south, becoming king of Lorien. East of the Eldar, the Avari continued to populate the lands in and near Quivienin, though over time some migrated further west and even mixed with the Sylvan elves. As for the race of men, they spread far throughout Middle-earth, with the Losoth populating Fodod Wythe and Fodokel in the frozen north, while the Middlemen, kin to the Dunedain of Numenor, populated Eriador and near the Greenwood. The ancestors of the Dunlandings also lived in this region, in and around the lands of Dunland and Breland, in addition to establishing a realm in the White Mountains. Further east, near and beyond the Sea of Rune, lived various sallow and olive-skinned peoples known collectively as the Easterlings, while in the south, the dark-skinned Haradrim tribes developed into expert horsemen and beastmasters, eventually training great elephants for war. Yet the most advanced of all human civilizations was the Kingdom of Numenor, where its people, the Dunedain, developed into expert sailors and warriors, exploring and colonizing many lands to become the greatest, wealthiest realm east of Valinor. Ruled by a king descended from Earendil in the capital of Armenelos, the island of Numenor was divided into the provinces Forostar, Orostar, Hjarostar, Hjarnustar, and Andustar, where the port city of Andunier became a stronghold for the faithful, even when the rest of the island stopped worshipping Eru. The last province, Middlemar, in the center of the island, was home to the mountain Meneltarma, where religious rituals occurred and the great eagles made their home upon its peak. East of the mountain was Arandor, the Kingsland, home to the capital and main port city Romena. Other notable locations in Numenor included the rivers Cyril and Nunduene, Eldalonde and Nisemaldar, where they grew special Malorn trees, the fishing village of Nindamos, the pastoral lands of Emerie, the tower of Sorontil, the mining city Ondosto, and the small island Tol Uinen, said to have been placed by the Maya Uinen, Lady of the Seas. Among the many colonies they founded, which may have included settlements in the Darkland and Land of the Sun, the most well-known were Vignalonde, Pelargir, which became a haven for the faithful, and Ambar, which oppositely became a haven for the kingsmen who lost their faith. Challenging the supremacy of Numenor was the second Dark Lord Sauron, a powerful Maya that once served as chief lieutenant to Morgoth, and continued that legacy by seeking the conquest of Middle-earth. Making his home in the lands of Mordor within the Mountains of Shadow, he sought access to volcanic Orodruin, or Mount Doom, raised by Morgoth in the First Age, as he needed its fires to forge the One Ring of Power. Sauron then raised the Tower Barad-dûr, and used human slaves to farm the lands of Nirn, near the Sea of Nurnen, in order to supply the armies of orcs, trolls, and other wicked creatures he raised in the Plateau of Gorgoroth. Sauron also won the allegiance of many Easterling and Haradrim tribes, which could be summoned to Mordor. After destroying Eregion in the War of the Elves and Sauron, the Dark Lord gradually gained more power and conquered much of northwestern Middle-earth, until the Dunedain under Ar-Pharazôn sailed east to defeat and take him captive to Numenor. Yet Sauron used this to his advantage by corrupting their people and becoming chief advisor to the king, so he could convince them to launch an attack against the Valar of Valinor. Sailing past the shadowy sea border and enchanted isles, they landed on Aman, thus violating the ban of the Valar, which forbid mortals from entering these lands. Since the Valar could not knowingly harm the children of Eru, Manwë asked the creator for assistance, causing him to intervene with a vengeance, destroying the Numenorian fleet, sinking their island, trapping their warriors beneath the ground, and reshaping the entire world, making it round and bringing forth new lands and seas, while detaching Aman entirely so it hovered outside the world, accessible only to the elves through a hidden straight road. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Thilbo the Farseer, Sir Loin, Werebear of the Great North, Sir Willem the Dawn-Treader, and Thomas the Kinslayer. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.